Welcome to the Complete Game Podcast, where we're all about baseball with Ethan Dungan, owner of Glovehound Baseball Glove Repair Shop, Rick Finley, founder of MD&I Baseball Academy, and the creator of George Foster Baseball, the MVP himself, Reds Hall-of-Famer George Foster. I'm your host, Greg Dungan. Now let's talk baseball. All right, so today we're going to get started. We're talking about power hitting today.
Okay.
And something that I think everybody, kind of wonders about. My question to you guys who have done it and taught it and coached it especially is, what does it mean to hit for power? So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, we're going to start with a segment we call Name 5. So I want to kind of go around the room here, and I want to name 5 players that come to your mind when you think of power hitting. Rick, why don't you lead us off?
Okay, power hitting. And I like Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, okay.
Shohei.
You took one of my names, but I'll let you have
Shohei
it.
is my guy, man. He's not just a power hitter. He's an athlete. Hits for power, hits for average, and he's a complete hitter.
Cool.
That's pretty good.
All right, who else is on your list, Rick?
Mookie Betts.
Oh, Mookie Betts.
Oh, yeah.
Freddie Freeman, good one.
Yes, I love Freddie, man. Freddie he stay inside the ball, man. He wear out that left side.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, I love, and he's a lefty that can hit oppo. So I like Freddie. And between Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Miguel Cabrera.
He's naming them all now.
All right, that's it. That's all I have.
Right there.
All right, George, what you got?
Well, he named all of, but no, the main guy,
We'll let you go first next time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't know why.
Yes.
So the main guy, I admire this guy. He's a Babe Ruth of the day as Aaron Judge. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy, when I had first seen him in the home run hitting contest, I said, this guy looked freaky because look how tall he is. And didn't have great control, coordination up there. And talking about hitting for power, hitting for average, he dominate. And I just love to watch him go up to the plate. But I know the pitchers don't like it. But, it's like commonplace for him to hit 50 home runs. Yeah. And then he's getting up to, it's like there's no limit to what he can do. And he's doing it legitimately. Yes. So Aaron Judge really stands out. He's number one. Mm-hmm. If there was a higher than number one, he's up there.
Yes.
Another guy, which I love as a hitter, is we're talking about Miguel Cabrera.
Yes. Triple Crown winner.
Yes.
Yeah, this guy, He puts they talk about putting the ball in play, but he put the ball in play with authority.
Mm. Yes,
and he was able to stay around longer at a older age because he's able to drive the ball to the opposite field. Mm. And I just one of the key to being able to be a power hitter, being able to hit the ball to the opposite field and have that great approach. But those two guys really stand out. Mike Trout, we had mentioned earlier, when he first come into the league, he dominated. Mm. And, of course, it's shown by his MVP awards. Yes. But I just love to sit and watch those guys swing the bat. Mm-hmm. And I love when they come to Great American, just go watch them take batting practice and how they just launch the ball. But we go way back, though, not really way back, but Mike Schmidt, here's a guy that,
yes.
Consistent.
He was consistent, but his first year he had a batting average under 200. But I think he had like 29 home runs. And from then on, this guy took off.
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
And we just, when we play against him, just hopefully that we have enough runs to surpass whatever home runs he may hit that particular game. Because when he gets hot, it's going to be tough. This guy, he didn't hit for a lot of power, but I love, two of them, Reggie Jackson.
Yes.
Because I had met Reggie when I was younger in Arizona, and this guy, talking about power build, he always hit the weights, and it was intimidating looking, but he gave it all when he went up to the plate, and you saw in the World Series that time against the Dodgers, hit 3 home runs, but nobody's going to throw at him.
Yeah, that's true.
He's kind of big,
and he had the world's greatest mustache.
It was good.
It was a good mustache.
But the other part, he's a great salesman.
Yeah,
he was. Yes,
he had a lot of charisma.
He did.
Had the Reggie bar and things.
Yes, the Reggie bar.
But the other thing that stood out for me when he went from the Yankees to the Angels, he had an incentive clause in his contract. And if they surpassed so many people in attendance, so they surpassed it, but the money that he received, he gave to the ground crew.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's been able to share the wealth.
That's awesome.
But that's some of the guys that really stood out for me. I keep saying last, but this guy comes to mind, Dick Allen. He had a 42-ounce bat.
That's huge, man.
Yeah. Wow. I just remember this scene. So he hits a home run, and then the pitcher, the opposing pitcher for the other team, had said something to him, was at first base. So he threw his mitt down and walked towards the guy, but nobody else backed that guy up. Like, no, this is Big Allen, we want to be able to have a longer career.
I call that a business decision.
That was a good business decision.
That's good. Ethan, who's on your list, buddy?
I picked 5 guys from my era growing up, and I lean more towards power hitters. But overall, when I think hitting, the first guy that comes to mind is Albert Pujols.
Oh, how did we miss him?
Yes,
the
I know.
machine, Albert Pujols, man.
Yes.
I mean, as a Reds fan, he was not my favorite. I didn't like him when he played for the Reds, or when he played against the Reds, but I liked him every other time, But just an all-around great hitter.
Yes.
Give us some stats. So remember, 10 years straight.
Oh, yes.
300 batting average.
batting
With
average.
30 home runs, 100 RBIs. That is uncanny.
Yes.
Yeah, and he played for 22 years.
Yeah, that's the other thing is he played a long time in an era where guys don't play that long anymore.
Injuries hurting.
Right.
Feet.
Yeah, 3-time MVP. Yeah, and I mean he played in over 150 games from a large chunk of that time.
Yes.
So he embodies that longevity as well, which is cool. And when he went to the Angels, I really thought they were going to the World Series, probably 3 times in a row.
With Trout there,
they were building something, and then unfortunately it didn't turn out. But I thought the Angels were about to be the next problem for sure. Number 2 is probably my favorite player of all time, Prince Fielder. I just love the guy.
Wow.
He was fun to watch. Career ended too soon by injuries, unfortunately, and another NL Central guy that just gave the Reds
all kinds
problems.
Of fits,
But trivia, not to step on your toe, but a trivia is that him and his dad end up with the same number of career home runs.
Isn't that funny?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they built the same, too.
Yeah, that's what Ethan said.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cecil was a little bit taller, but
bit.
Prince had that mass, man. When they say mass equals gas, mass equals power too, man. Number 3 on my list is David Ortiz. I mean,
Big Bobby.
Being a DH, he made his whole career out of hitting. And man, he could just hit the ball. And I really liked big guys who could hit the ball hard, and those 3 are definitely fit that criteria.
That comes from the years when Ethan was not as speedy as he might have been later on.
You remember me, Rick. I was round as I was tall, and so I was
all those pictures, man.
Yeah, I know you do. So trying to find guys that embodied, my ability.
Gave you some hope.
I remember one year when I was still in Little League, I just could not hit the ball. I think it was my first year at Kid Pitch. I was struggling, and my average was terrible. And we were looking around the league trying to figure out, who in the MLB was I doing better than? Johnny Cueto.
A pitcher.
My average was better than Johnny Cueto, and I hung my hat on that one.
But another tidbit about Ortiz, what I loved is the fact that he proved, I think it was Minnesota, wrong, because they had either released him. I know they got rid of him.
Yeah,
and then he was very impactful. Yeah. Sometimes you take that as fuel to show others that you can do it. And I know there's some football fans out there, but Barkley with Philadelphia, he wanted to prove to the Giants that, hey, you made a bad deal.
Yes.
But it turned out to be great for Philadelphia.
Absolutely. Number 4 on my list is Ryan Howard.
Man.
Yeah,
50 home runs, twice?
I mean, he didn't play for very long.
Injuries again.
But his prime was unreal. I mean, it was video game numbers.
Yeah.
Love watching
He
him
could
play.
swing it.
Thanks, Ethan.
I'll say your lists are almost identical, so I'm glad I brought some variety to it.
No, that's great.
And then number 4 is just purely power, is Adam Dunn.
Oh, that big donkey.
The
The big donkey. He didn't. Average was not his thing. He was there for the long ball, and
He was all or nothing, that's
yeah.
for sure.
But I couldn't leave him off my list.
Well, 40 home runs, how many years in a row? About 8 or 9, but he was consistent in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking through, so I tried to go to my era
in a
here,
row.
which was basically
5 in a row.
the 80s. Oh, did you find some?
About Adam Dunn.
5 in a row, over 40 or more home runs.
That's impressive.
That's cool.
That's crazy.
That's impressive.
A lot of strikeouts too.
Yes.
We don't talk about strikeouts. You know?
But the interesting thing, and this is something we can work in later, is I came up in the 80s, so I started really being interested in baseball in like 78, 79, and then kind of came up through there. And you had the guys in the 60s who were just, hitting machines. You had the Willie Mays and the Stan Musials and the Harmon Killebrews and these guys who were just pounding the ball. And then all of a sudden we go into the 80s and nobody hits 50 home runs for the entire decade.
Yes.
Let's exonerate on that. Nobody.
Yeah. And so guys, when I think of hitters, I think of guys who don't have near the stats that what we're talking about, but they were the hitters when I was a kid. They were guys like Ricky Henderson. They were guys like Eddie Murray.
Yes.
They were guys like Winfield, Brett,
Dave.
Yeah, Winfield. Yeah.
Robin Yount, Dale Murphy.
Hall of Famers.
Mike Schmidt. Now, the cool thing about Mike Schmidt, I mean, he played 18 years, and for 13 of those years, he hit more than 30 home runs.
Yeah.
Right.
13 times.
Yes.
Led the league
Yes.
8 times.
8 times.
Was Hank Aaron what he never did hit 50, I know, but he was averaging 40.
40.
Yeah.
Yeah, he averaged 40.
But a guy we didn't talk much about him, he had to be around Ethan's time, is Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Very
The reason that
productive.
I say that because I know his dad was my roommate, but he's such he wasn't, I would call violent, didn't have a violent swing.
He just had a natural,
sort of poetic, yeah.
athletic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, he was tall, and he
Yes.
had reach,
Yes, he
and he
did.
could just this smooth swing.
And he was in that home run chase in the 90s too for a good while, and I think he ended up getting hurt
Yes. Yeah,
halfway through the year. But
Ran into the wall.
but he was hanging with those guys for a
he
long
was.
portion.
Ethan
of
and I
time.
were talking about like that. That's why, when you come through an entire decade where nobody hits 50 home runs, and then
It's like, why?
and then all of a sudden guys are hitting 70 home runs. You're like, what? Like this ain't right.
If you-
Like
if
we
you-
knew something wasn't right.
If you want the dates, we got Willie Mays in 1965 hits 52, and then almost 10 years later we have Mr. George Foster in 1977.
You had to have a pause in between there. And it didn't take, it took, 12 more years for this guy to hit 50 more home runs. But I didn't realize at the time, I was excited the fact that I did something my idol had done.
Right? Yeah.
That's awesome.
But then after that, I mean, when Ken Griffey Jr. came to Cincinnati, we have a mutual friend. I told the friend, I said, tell Griff, we're going to try to get him traded. And they said, why? So he won't break my record.
But yeah, tell us a little bit about what it felt like to hit the same number of home runs as Willie Mays. I mean, that's cool because Willie was a mentor for you when you came up in San Francisco.
We're growing up, being in Alabama, the name Willie Mays, and it sounds funny, but when you hear a certain, it's like kids today, when they hear a name, they want to emulate that player.
100%.
And my part is graded as someone who's doing something constructive. Didn't realize that he's a baseball player. And so I wanted to play Major League Baseball, play with the Giants alongside Willie Mays, and all those had come true. So I got drafted by the Giants. I got a chance to meet Willie Mays, and I saved a lot of meal money because by the time he ordered his room service, Bobby Bonds and I would go around being like control, making sure that the food was okay. It's okay. Now you can order some more. But when I hit the 52 home runs, I was excited because I say doing something my idol had done. Yeah. And then when Cecil hit his 50th home run, I called him. I said, welcome to the club.
That's cool.
But he didn't do that until 1990.
1990. Yeah, I was going to say there was like a I like the asterisk next to it because they had him to lead off, and it was an extra game that they played. Detroit wasn't going any place at the time, and Sparky let him off so he can get more at bats, so he ended up hitting a home run. But I didn't really count that because I look at the American League as a junior league. It wasn't really the major league. So, but I think I was 10th or 11th in Major League history, not bragging, but in Major League history. But I was going to charge Cecil because I had stationery saying the 10th or 11th, then he surpassed that, and now I had to get new stationery because it wasn't correct.
One of the interesting things about Mike Schmidt was that he hit almost as many doubles as he hit home runs. So he was just as deadly to just move runners as he was to just crank it over the fence. Andre Dawson, there was another one when I was
Andre, yeah.
I mean, that guy could hit. So, these guys, there were some amazing hitters, but, when I grew up, it was these guys who were sort of consistent and consistently good, but no one was just tearing it up like that. And I don't know if that was because ballparks were different or the ball was different or the bats were different. I don't know. Maybe guys weren't as big as they were. I really don't know why. George, you have a theory as to why the numbers dropped in the 80s?
I'm not really sure either. I just knowing maybe guys start to focus more on average. I'm not really sure in that area, but it's they really, like I say, focus on team play. A lot of bunting, a lot of hit running, and then a lot of base stealing. You're probably looking at air. There are a lot of guys, a lot of speed. Team incorporated more speed. I know when we played the Cardinals, I don't like to use the word, hated to play the Cardinals because they had what I call Greyhound.
Vince Coleman.
Yeah, Vince Coleman.
Willie McGee.
Oh,
McGee,
my goodness.
Ozzie
That man
Smith.
was fast.
Those guys are, I said, I would love to be in that lineup because Tommy Herr, I think, hit 10 home runs one year and drove in 100 RBI. But the thing is, if they hit the ball in the outfield down the line, I'm not thinking about keep him at a double.
Yeah.
Keep him at third base because these guys were ready to score.
Yes.
And after that game, you're tired because you're running. I think one game I ran more so at the time. Tony Dorsett had the most yardage in the National Football League, but I think I surpassed it that particular year.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that really, I think, frustrated me when he was growing up and everything became about pitching and about home run hitting. I was used to watching guys move runners and play baseball. And so I was always, there were a lot of years where I just wouldn't even watch it. I was like, this isn't even baseball. It didn't feel the same to me because I was waiting for more team play. And that kind of thing. So that was
I think you check the pitching because you had like a lot of guys who were stars at the pitching wise, and there were lefties that stood out, but there are other young guys would come in and they were very consistent in that period of time. And like say, they having gone towards more speed and having better pitching helped, I guess, prevented as many home runs being hit.
But that was one thing I was wondering. So facing somebody like Bob Gibson or Sandy Koufax versus facing somebody like Oral Hershiser or Dwight Gooden.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
What's the difference there?
Well, Bob Gibson he's more of a power pitcher, and Hershiser he was a pitcher, but he had more crafty and had sinker, slider, and he would lull you to sleep per se. When I go up there, I would take the first pitch, and after that at bat, I said, "Why did I take the first pitch?" Because he had a smooth delivery, and all of a sudden the ball's on you, and I think I got it, but it would sink away or throw your slider, and I think to me that's when the slider really dominated. People talk about other pitching, but the slider was always the most challenging pitch to hit. It looks like a fastball, and all of a sudden it drops off the table. Yeah. And that's why bring to mind Steve Carlton. When he was with the Cardinals and then he went to the Phillies, he had a fastball curveball. And I love the fact because you can see that curveball, and you had time. And then Tim McCarver, he encouraged Carlton to stop throwing the curveball and go to the slider. And that year he went I think the Phillies won 61 games. He won 26. 20 was 26-9 that particular year. That slider made the big difference.
Yes.
Yeah. From a teaching perspective, Rick, when you're working with developing pitchers, is the slider something you like to go to a lot? Is that something that's particularly good for pitchers to learn? Kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, I do, because with the slider, it's really is a hybrid fastball with some movement to depending lefty cut here or move away. So you want it more moving side to side versus what a curveball has got more of a hook. That's easy you see a ball with a hump. Okay, we say if you hang it, we bang it. And so you can see the curveball versus a slider. Like now, I throw a lot of sliders to a lot of hitters now, and they can't get to it because they see it, and then it moves away a lot faster. And actually, truthfully, a slider is a lot easier to really to teach. A lot of people say, a curveball is not. Curveball, a lot of kids, they want to start extending out here versus a slider. I don't think fastball and pull through at the last second. So it'll look fastball and then move away from you at the last minute. So to me, that's easier. And you keep playing around with it until you throw to a spot. That's what a lot of people don't understand when you're working on off-speed pitches or whatever. Throw to a spot. So if George right here, he's catching. So I'll say, okay, I'll start my slider here, but I wanted to end up right here. And you just play around with it a little bit until you feel that and I always tell the kids, everybody is different. You ain't gonna throw it like I throw it or whatever, but you'll get the intent on how to release it and how to make it look like a fastball.
Cool. The other thing I remember from that era was things more like, Fernando Valenzuela. So he's throwing screwballs. Yeah.
Right.
So how does that differ from facing somebody like Oral Hershiser?
Well, now it's going the other way with him being lefty.
Yeah.
So you're adjusted to seeing that sinker coming in. Now he throws that screwball is going away. Yeah. So now you have a pitch going in, going away. So, but in my case, I was able to make the adjustment because I knew that my approach is going to right center. And I remember in Dodger Stadium, the first year, Fernando, no one could hit him because I wasn't playing much that year. Nobody could hit him. So now the next year he started throwing more fastballs, but they're looking screwball. So now it's like, what else does this guy have? So I didn't realize he had a slider until this is one of the few times that I fouled off like 6 or 7 pitches during that at bat. But with my approach to right center, it helped. So he threw me a slider. But my swing path was already adjusted to that. And I ended up hitting a home run to left center. And I'm running around the bases like, yeah, I knew he's going to throw that. But I'm like, I was puzzled, like, how did I hit that? But I didn't even, I didn't even know that he had that pitch. But it's making an adjustment. So I had developed a swing that would be able to handle a slider or a screwball or a fastball. But you find a lot of guys, I laugh at them because they end up hitting themselves in the shin, break their knee, break their kneecap, or there are a couple of guys broke their leg because they hit. I said, you don't really love yourself. You keep hitting yourself. But knowing that those guys hitting around the ball. So with that slider that Valenzuela was throwing, no way they would have been able to hit it. If they did, they're going to go foul or they're going to end up hitting themselves. And they're rolling around on the ground like, get out, let's go.
Yeah, I remember a lot of foul balls during Fernando Valenzuela games.
I know.
Yeah, that was almost like every time we would go and we would be seeing Bronson Arroyo pitch, and oh my gosh, it was just a foul ball festival every time that kid took the mound.
No, the best one though was Tom Browning, and this is a true fact. And parents is not something that Rick told me to tell you guys to do. So Tom Browning said if he goes up there and the guy fouls off like 5 or 6 pitches, the next pitch he'll hit him because he said they already seen all I have. So I'm just going to go to the next guy. I said, that makes sense. And at that moment I said, I wish I were a pitcher that if he keep fouling it off, okay, you got to earn this walk.
That's funny. So you finished the season last year, exhausted from all the travel and the tournaments, and you tossed your gear in a bag where it's been sitting all winter. Now you're ready for another year, but your favorite glove that fits just right is an error waiting to happen. The leather's dry, the laces are brittle, and this year you're on a new team with new colors, and it sure would be cool if it matched. Well, wouldn't it be great if you had a glove guy who could help you out with that? You do. His name is Ethan, and he owns Glovehound Baseball Glove Repair Shop in Fairfield, Ohio. Just contact him at glovehound.com and upload pictures of your glove. He'll give you a call back to talk it over, and then you can send it in for a repair, relace, recondition, whatever you need. If you're in the area, you can even just stop by the shop. That way you don't have to bother with shipping, and a lot of times he can even fix it while you wait. Rawlings, Wilson, Mizuno, All-Star, Nakona, he's seen them all, and he's helped players at all levels, from beginners to pros. Last year he worked on a glove that Jose Trevino used in the World Series, and he can help you too. You can find Glovehound on Google, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at glovehound.com. You're only going to get busier, so reach out today and give your glove the love it deserves at Glovehound. All right, well, we're going to move on to the next segment. This is going to be our main segment. Right now, we're just calling it the main thing. We'll find a cooler name for it down the line. But right now, this is our main question. So my question to you guys is, what does it mean to hit for power? And should every or could every player learn to do it? So let's start with, what does it mean to hit for power? George, why don't you start us off?
People confuse hitting for power with hitting home runs.
Right.
Yeah.
Hitting, like we talked about earlier, Mike Schmidt, he hit for power, not only hit home runs, but he hit doubles. So being able to hit the ball in the gap, that's hitting for power.
Yeah.
And I just feel that unless it's a guy that just wanted to hit Billy Hamilton, hit the ball on the ground and run. But other guys like Mookie Betts, here's a guy hit for power because he has a lot of speed and he can get doubles and triples. Yeah. So it's just being able to drive the ball. Yes. That's the word I would use, being able to drive the ball, and that's when you're hitting for power. And everybody can do that, except some guys are selected to make sure you hit the ball on the ground. And hitting home runs, I look at hitting home runs as a byproduct of executing the right techniques. A lot of guys try to hit home run, they lift the ball. But I would look at their home run total and look at their RBI total. If it's a ratio of more than 1 to 3, then they're not hitting home runs with men in scoring position.
Right.
So, if you're, say, like 1 to 2, that's not good. Yeah. So a guy hit 20 home runs, 40 RBIs. So that's what I was proud about that year when I hit 52 home runs. I was 7 off as far as that ratio. So I had 52 home runs, 149 RBIs. I was 7 off. I blame Griffey for not scoring more, but but I always look at that ratio.
Cool. Okay. Rick, what would you say? What does it mean to hit for power, especially when you're working with young players?
And I agree with what George just said. And with a young player, you got to look at their size and stuff, because a lot of parents want the kids to drive the ball. I said, you can only do what his body can tell him
yeah, it's true.
was able to do, man. So you can't manufacture something he can't do. But really just work on hitting line drives. Just keep it simple. Yeah. Learning how to use the whole field and go gap to gap. And just keep it simple as that, especially for kids 9, 10, 11. And by the time they're 12, they start getting a little bit more stronger, a little bit more coordination, be able to use their hands a little bit. Also, for me, in our program, we use a lot of wood bats. Wood, go back to something that's simple and basic, develop the hands, wrists, and everything, and then when they go back to their aluminum bat or composite bat, it feel like they're cheating now because it's so light now. They're learning how to drive the ball or hit the ball harder. I always say you can't control where the ball goes, but you can control your approach to hitting.
Right.
Yes,
that's true.
But back when they had the shift, they would ask me, what would you do differently if they had the shift? I said, well, it's not legal to have a player in the stands, so it didn't really affect me.
Ethan, what comes to your mind when you think about hitting for power?
Well, I agree with what you guys were saying about it. It gets confused with home runs, I think, too often. because that, that's where the money is, and everybody wants to be that kind of guy. But when you're talking about different ages and sizes, what age do you start trying to decide, maybe power's not my thing, let me focus on trying to hit the ball on the ground more? Or do you want to stick to just hitting line drives for as long as possible?
Once again, I look at the skill if they're fast, they have good running speed. Sure. So I'm focusing on bunting and hitting the ball on the ground, and then we build up later. Okay. But it's I call this building a swing. What's the process in doing that? There's a downfall sometimes for me because parents come thinking that, well, you're going to have my kid hit home runs. I said, no, that's not the objective. Hit for power. They're like, what do you mean hit for power? I want them to hit home run because they're thinking that this is their meal ticket. I said, no, I just want to develop this kid. Yes. But when I see that's when I was coaching, I would say, I look at the running speed. Mm. And they have good running speed. I want you to be able to get on base. Yes. And that's a weapon, being able to get on base. When we were playing, you have like a Lou Brock, you have a Joe Morgan, a Ken Griffey Sr. You get on base, that's like you're at second base. You're going to steal, even if you don't steal a base. But I use this, people don't understand when I say this, is that speed sets up power. Like, what do you mean speed sets up power? But when a Griffey or Geronimo or Joe Morgan get on base, what is the catcher thinking? The catcher want to call fastballs because they're embarrassed if the guy is still second base or still a base. So now you have to have a fastball hitter behind a base stealer. And I remember if you do have a breaking ball hitter behind a base stealer, it's not going to work. But you have a fastball hitter, oh, that's dangerous. Yes. And so you're going to get more fastballs to hit. So they give Foster or Perez or Johnny Bench more fastballs to hit. So when Morgan get on base, even if he doesn't steal, that's the thought of it.
That's the interesting thing about guys like Bench too, is that he hit a ton of doubles. Yes. And see, this is what I'm in my mind, I'm seeing power hitting as someone who can move multiple runners.
Right.
So you want your power hitter up. In my limited understanding, you want your power hitter up when you've got multiple guys on base. So that's why you want him in that 4 hole and that 6 hole, and that you want to have a chance to have 2-3 guys in front of him, so that if he grabs a double, you got 2-3 runs coming in.
That's why I disagree with the lineups today. They bring in, you say you have an Aaron Judge or a Soto batting second. No, you want them to bat third or so because there's a saying that they want them to have more at bats. No, you want to have more at bats with men on base.
Absolutely,
yes. Not necessarily in scoring position. I look at myself being in scoring position from home plate. But if a guy's at first base, to me, he's in scoring position. Yeah. And even if you don't drive that guy in, you hit the ball in the gap. Now you're second and third in that situation. Right. But I know in Bench's case that they're going to be playing deeper, so that now there's more room. You can't go in there and bunch him. But like I say, I disagree with how they put the lineups up. I think, I was thinking about Philadelphia and the Phillies, and I would put Turner leading off, and is it Schwarber? Have him batting second, because now Turner's going to get more fastballs to hit. Yes. And then Schwarber, he's still going to hit for power. He'll get hit for power, hit home runs. But if he gets on base, he's going to be there. He's not going to unless someone. And then if someone gets a hit, he's going to get to second base. But that's going to be a more potent lineup if they do that. But of course, I'm not the manager. But those are things that I would do to tweak. And I think it was same with the Mets. They have. I put Soto third and bring somebody else batting second. Bring some more speed in there. But I look at toying at this lineup. What would I do differently? And same with the Reds, like McClain. Should I have Dela Cruz or McClain? So I maybe have McClain because now Cruz is going to get more fastballs to hit. Right. But it's like people don't understand that. And I wanted to call before they did sign Alonso, re-sign him, Cohen. I said, Soto's going to lead the world in walks if you doesn't have Alonso behind him. Right. But once again, they don't understand protection up there.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought when you think about, putting your lineup together and who should follow who.
Right. Oh.
Because a lot of times I think we train young players, and Rick, you can speak to this. I think or coaches mean well, and they train hitters to go up there and think about, I need the best hit. I need the best thing I can create while I'm here. And so the goal becomes hit well rather than move the runner and bring in the run. And the goal of the hitter should be to make runs happen, right?
Exactly. It should be more of a team concept versus I concept.
Right. I like that.
Yes. And even when I'm doing lessons, I always do a lot of situationals.
Yeah.
You play that over and over again so kids understand the game, the strategy at your at bat. And we don't do that enough. Coaches don't do that enough. I got a man on second and third, less than 1 out. I don't care if you hit a flare to right, a hard ground ball to second base. Guess what? That's an RBI, man.
That's a line drive.
You're going to be
paper.
celebrated, man. And, boom, you did your job. You did your job. And I think that's where we got to start training kids. Bunting, drag bunt, push bunt, sack. All these things that's going to make it, I call it a fast break offense in baseball.
There you go.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, we're going to have an entire
So,
episode on bunting at some point, because I know that's close to all of your hearts. We're going to talk about bunting.
Well, and at that younger level, just getting the ball in play can be so effective.
Yes.
Just, even if it's not the highest quality of contact, you're not dealing with Gold Glove fielders out there, and you can be very effective just by getting the ball in play.
Yes. And to elaborate on what you just said, this is where sometimes we got to eliminate batting averages and game changers stuff all the time, man.
Well, and you think, you're going to get up there and hit, and you got to figure you're in a tournament, and that team you're playing against, they haven't practiced any more than you haven't practiced. So, they're just as likely to make an error when you put the ball in place as anybody else.
But to me, though, I find that people, once again, they may not understand, bunting helps you become a better hitter. You got to be able to see the ball when you're bunting. See the ball off the bat. Let the ball hit the bat. And a lot of times when you're swinging the bat, you're not really seeing the ball.
Right.
And you have to have a lot of courage up there to be able to stay there. I'm standing there against a Nolan Ryan. Yeah. And please throw it over the plate. but I didn't know until I attempted to bunt that he didn't like someone bunting on him. I didn't know why the next ball was coming at my head. But they didn't tell me about it until later on. I said, well, thanks for telling me now. But being able to see the ball hit the bat. And the other day I was teaching someone to bunt, but I said you got to have your eyes behind the bat.
Yes, there you go.
But then you're able to see the ball better. And now they start to make a better transition and also make it a better choice. But the first thing I would say I said, who's the team player here? And they raise their hand. I said, if we're going to work on bunting, if you're not a team player, then that means if you don't want to bunt, that means that you're not a team player.
Right. Yeah.
It's we don't want to bunt. We don't want to bunt. Then they in my camps or clinics teach them how to bunt.
Yes.
And then now they see. I know that they see the ball.
Yes.
You have to be able to see the ball to bunt.
Well, and the thing they need to remember is if you bunt and you get on base, it's a hit.
Oh,
yes.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine off the top of my head. I'd like to see the stat on it someday. How many of Pete Rose's hits were bunts? Because I'll bet you there was a good number of them.
But not only the fact that if he bunt is the fact that he showed the bunt.
It.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now that changes the defense.
Yes.
And you find the corners will move
crushing.
in.
Yes.
And so now that makes a big difference. But when I went up there and I attempted to bunt, the guy at Mike Smith at third base said, go ahead and bunt. He's still out there in left field. I said, come on in, Mike. Come on in.
Well, that's like, you and I've talked about it a couple of times when we weren't recording. But yeah, the 1976 World Series, very first pitch, very first thing out of the gate. The first thing Rose does is show bunt.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you about that because I wasn't sure why. And that was when you brought up a really interesting point in that when you're watching baseball on TV, you're kind of at a disadvantage because you can't see what all the players are doing.
Right,
all you see is from the pitcher's perspective. And so you were able to explain to me that what that did to the infield.
And it reminded them that, he may bunt.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the manager, move in. Even if it's 1 or 2 steps, it makes a big difference.
Well, yeah, it opens up that gap and makes it easier to put one over their head and drop it and get on base.
Yeah, I always, when I was up, they would say, take all the married men off the infield because I would like to destroy you. I would hurt somebody up there. But another thing that when I'm teaching hitting, is that we want to talk about hitting zone compared to strike zone.
Yes.
Okay.
So I want them to increase their strike zone because their balls that's in the hitting zone that you're able to drive. Do not leave it to the umpire to judge if it's a ball or strike. There are times that I see guys get called out on balls, pitchers that are not in the strike zone, but it's in your hitting zone.
But it's in the hitting zone. Yes.
So it takes a while for this kid because the coaches said, swing at strikes, swing at strikes. Then you ask the kid, what's the strike zone? I don't really know.
They don't.
And so now they're passive up there.
Yes.
I said, be aggressive. Can you hit that?
Yeah, that's what when Ethan first started, one of the first things I tried to teach him coaching teams was, can I put a bat on that?
Right.
If you can ask yourself that when you're looking at this pitch, not is that a strike or is that a ball?
Right.
Can I put a bat on that?
You only
and if
have
you
one
can, do it.
Wear one uniform when you're at the plate.
That's right.
You're not the umpire. Just focus on swinging the bat. And I like, come on, can you hit that? Can you hit that? Yeah, but it's not a strike. I know, but this is in your hitting zone. It's like it's a recording, telling them that.
Well, and I loved the high pitch. I could not lay off the high pitch. And the one home run I hit in high school was high and inside, and I had no business swinging at it, and I did, and boy, I sent that thing
right up around the chin, baby. I love that.
But I find that if you're not able to lay off it, learn how to hit it.
Yeah.
That's why we do a lot of hot tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy, Stan Bunting, he was a rookie of the year with the Yankees. Now he's with, at the time, Montreal. And he had that curveball. And I changed my stance to stand taller because I was swinging the bat well, and nobody else was really swinging the bat well on the team. So he kept throwing that curveball. So it was a 3-0 count, and man on first and second, and he threw me a curveball. It was a ball. It was practically over my head, but I hit a line drive over the left field wall. I mean, right into the foul screen. Mm-hmm. And after the game, I wanted to go over and console him by saying that, I worked on that. Because he was gesturing with his hand like, how could he hit that? How could he hit that? I want to let him know I practiced on that. So, but like I say, if you're not able to lay off it, learn how to hit it.
Learn how to hit it.
Rick, what are some things that you would recommend that coaches can do to teach their kids to be offensive hitters? In other words, to teach them to say, can I put a bat on that? How can I recognize my hitting zone over just trying to guess the strike zone?
A lot of it is just patience. You got to have patience and a lot of failure at hitting, So you just got to have patience with kids, man. I've used, even with my own son, we use everything from wiffle balls, man, to golf ball size balls to regular baseballs, and you just kind of change a lot of the different things. Keep it fun. I think that's one of the main things is keep it fun. They're going to swing and miss and stuff like that, but it's repetition, really, just repetition, throwing balls and everything, and then from there, then you can move to more situational based hitting for kids, and then but I think a lot of it, as far as you're talking about team based, I think you got to have it's going to come down to what's your philosophy, and do you have the right assistant coaches that can carry out your message and your philosophy? Right. Because you're only as good as the guys around you.
Right. That's a good point.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind is you can, as a hitter, you can control what you swing at.
Yeah.
You cannot control what the umpire is going to call a strike.
That's true.
I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of kids now in this era, and I'm saying this because a lot of kids don't go outside enough to play baseball on their own.
Well, And when you're playing casually with your buddies, there isn't an umpire.
There isn't.
Right.
And so you're not looking to take a walk if it's just you and your buddy, because you're playing Ghost
The whole
Man.
thing is about hitting.
Yeah, so it's like that. That's not fun. So I'm going to try to hit the whatever it is, the bottle cap, the ball, the rock, the whatever, and you're not concerned about the strikes. You're not concerned about walks, and you're more concerned about just hitting whatever object is coming at you.
And I think that transitioning from there to a practice element, man, I think that'll get more kids amped up and be more confident at the plate when
100%.
they step up to the plate, man.
Because nothing hits your confidence like guessing a strike or guessing a ball and having the umpire call it a strike, because you thought you did good, you thought you guessed right, and it was out of your control. And that it hits your confidence, especially for a young player, because you're thinking you know the rules, and then somebody, maybe he does get it a little bit wrong, or maybe you saw it wrong, and you can completely eliminate that by hitting pitches even if they're not strikes.
Yes, sir.
It's okay. It's a hit. You don't have to swing at strikes, but something that's hittable.
Yeah.
Well, and goes back to what you've said before, George, is the difference between hitting and batting. Like I'm up here trying to make something happen. I'm not up here trying not to make a mistake.
Right. But some coaches, but that's why I started coaching again at that particular time, because I wanted to show the kids, or at least also the other parents, that this is the way to play the game. But you have coaches swing at strikes, and then even in batting practice, if the kid strikes out, he's got to do push-ups, to get punished for that. And so now when a parent comes to me and said, well, my kid, he's been up 100 at bats, he only struck out 3 times, right away I know that kid's very passive, defensive up there. But if they say, well, my kid been up 100 times and struck out like 15 times, I said, well, he's being aggressive. So now making sure that he's disciplined up there. But it's a challenge teaching being aggressive.
Yes.
When they come from a standpoint of go up there and make sure you put the ball in play. Okay, there's a 3-1 count. They hit the ball back to the pitcher. Oh, way to go, Johnny! No, swing the bat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I like what George was what he was saying too. Is that I think there is a lot of pressure on kids now to be. I always say this: it's easy to teach a kid that's aggressive versus a kid that's passive.
Yeah.
Just trying to get him to
Well,
don't think about the failure, dog. Just swing the bat.
Well, that's the three of us remember cars when they didn't have power steering, and you can only steer them if they're in motion.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
you're not going to steer them standing still. So it's always easier to steer that kid if he's already aggressive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yesterday, I got a text from a mom, and she was like, "Yeah, the dad sent me a video. He's 16U. Used to play with one of my MD&I teams, and he's 16U, and said, man, he's topping the ball. Like, yeah. So I told her, text her a couple of things I think it was, but I said, but the video is kind of blurry, so I can't really see what he's doing wrong, truthfully. So he comes in for fielding and hitting yesterday and everything. So, I said, okay, we'll start off with some one hand top hand drills. Right. So we worked on that and everything, threw him change ups, we threw that. I'm like, man, everything looks good, man. And so he hits. I take him through situational, throwing change-ups, curve, fastballs. I said, man, there ain't nothing wrong with you, man. I called his mom up. I'm like, man, there ain't nothing wrong with you.
You have the wrong kids.
Yeah, it's like, man, he's okay. I don't see no ground balls. He in line drives, dog. Something I told him, we don't have to spend a whole heck of a lot of time on this, dog. I don't want to put you in a slump. And those are things I think sometimes as parents we get what they perceive.
Right.
It's not what I see.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and
they're trying to tell you what you should be doing. Working with the kid. Mm-hmm. So it's more so sit back and observe. Yeah. But the two things that I try to narrow it down to make it simple. For every result, there's a cause. There's a cause. What caused that? Mm-hmm. Can not a kid hit a ground ball to the left side? What caused that? well, he's hitting the outside part of the ball. But the parents only knowing that, okay, he's hooking the ball. But why? What's causing that?
Yes.
Or a kid is popping up. Okay, what is causing that? He's getting under the ball. So keep it simple.
Yes.
And say hitting the ball to, well, I had my godson that played, a guy way back, Preston Wilson, played for the Mets and going with the Marlins. And this burst his bubble, but I wanted to let him know that, okay, he said, I said, how'd you do today? Well, I went 2 for 3. Then I want to know, okay, what was the count when you got that base hit? He said, well, it was a 3-1 count. I got a base hit to right field. And he's a power hitter, or get hit for power. And I said, okay, who won that battle? He said, well, I did. I said, no, the pitcher won the battle because he kept you in the ballpark. The count was in your favor, 3-1, and you settled for a base hit to right field. So if you had 2 strikes and you hit the ball, that's good hitting.
Yes.
But I said, you got the hit. Yeah, I'll give you the credit for getting the hit. But for me, I'm 3-1 looking middle end to drive that ball, yes. Not necessarily out of the park. So now you're at first base, you got a single compared to being at second base with a double. So it's just teaching the kids and counts in your favor, look middle end. Counts, you have 2 strikes on you, look middle away.
Yes,
so you're able to protect the plate. That's how you become a hitter. Yes. But a lot of guys, they get a 3-1 count and they throw a curveball outside and they hit a weak ground ball to the right side. I said, why'd you swing at that pitch? Well, it was a strike. I said 3-1, make sure you look middle end. Mm-hmm. So, but you're getting kids to understand that.
Yeah. I always say 3-1. How many strikes does it take for you to get out? Use them all, dog.
Right.
Use them all. But 3-1. It's in your count, man. Sit on what you're looking for. Hunt your pitch.
Right. But you don't. The kids, if you don't know, you're not able to teach it.
Right. Exactly.
And I give credit to the parents or the coaches that are out there trying to help, but sometimes they get too instructive. They haven't done it before.
Along the lines of keeping it simple, is Rick, I was a member of one of those lessons where I came in and nothing was wrong. I was in high school and I was struggling with pitching, man.
I remember that day.
I was a chronic overthinker. I love to think.
And analyze paralysis by
analysis.
100%. And I'm in there and I'm thinking about each one of my emotions. And I'm like, I called Rick. I said, Rick, something's off, man.
This was funny.
I said, I don't know what it is. And Dad said, he said, call Rick. He said, he'll help you out. So I call Rick and we get in there and we're just catching. We're keeping it loose, moving the feet, whatever. I start throwing. He's like, you're fine. He said, he's like, just throw the ball. You say, you're thinking way too much. Just do what you know how to do.
Be an athlete. Be natural.
I was so thankful.
He came back and I said, how'd it go? He said, I was
like, spoon. I'm like, oh, man, there ain't nothing wrong with you.
But that was great input because he trusted what you had 100%. To say.
Yeah,
he came back and I said, how'd it go? And he said, I was thinking too much. I said, you? Really?
No way.
No. Ethan is more than my podcast partner. He's my son. And like every baseball parent, my first priority was his development as a player. Every year, we'd start out with a new coach and a new team, making new promises, only to end up playing the same old tournaments with little to no practice in between. You know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm so thankful that we found MD&I Academy. I first met Coach Rick over a decade ago when Ethan was just a kid, and I'll never forget the relief I felt watching his first lesson. I knew right then that no matter what team he played for, my son would have amazing, consistent instruction from someone who cared. Rick has trained baseball and softball players at the select, travel, and even college levels, so I knew that Ethan could continue his excellence through training approach for his whole baseball career. He learned hitting, pitching, catching, fielding, and more all in one place. Most of all, he learned to love the greatest game in the world and how to play it with character and integrity. MD&I is a first-class facility with plenty of tunnels for hitting and pitching instruction that open up into large areas for teaching fielding, base running, speed, and agility. They even have a weight room for strength training. So if you're wearing yourself out running all over town to multiple teachers, or worse, you're counting on that new select coach to actually develop your child, you need to check out MD&I Academy today. Go to mdaiacademy.com and contact Coach Rick to learn how you can get all the baseball instruction you need from someone who cares about your favorite player as much as you do at MD&I Academy. All right, so let's move on to another segment that we're calling then and now. So we want to talk about teaching hitting and learning hitting. So we'll start with you, Rick. How did you learn to hit then, and do you teach it differently now?
Oh, yes, a lot. Yeah. I learned how to hit from my dad, of course, because he played baseball, then he transitioned into softball at those times. And then the neighborhood that I grew up in, we had a lot of good baseball players, man, athletes, man, that could hit, man, and we hit all the time. And then we hit with older guys. So the older guys kind of taught you how to hit, man. They'll work with you, man. You know, you playing street baseball, man. You know, everybody choosing you, but if you get chose last, you felt like you wasn't that good. But if you got chose somewhere near the middle and you with one of those, the bigger guys, man, they kind of took you up under the ring, sort of speak. So we used to go and watch my friends, their older brothers play. They were very good, like Daryl Boston.
Oh, yeah.
We used to go watch them play, man. And this guy at Northside KFC, Ohio Welding, all the teams in our neighborhood, we go watch those guys play. Toss with them, hit with them, just ask them questions, show you how to catch, everything. So the way we hit then, we also mimic a lot of the people we saw on TV.
Right.
Again, like George, Joe Morgan.
Right.
Everybody had the crouch like Pete Rose. As I used to like my buddy only because he had this big afro, Oscar Gamble. For Cleveland. So I was a big because the A's and the Reds back then were like World Series guys. So you had those two teams. To me at that time coming up, you had all those athletes, man. On both sides of the, so wanted to mimic all those guys there. So now teaching baseball a little bit more differently, I'm more of, let me see here, a little bit more patient and everything. And that's the really different now is being patient and showing kids how to be a complete hitter. And I think today we got to go back to basic stuff with kids. Yeah. And I'll leave it as that. I don't want to take up any more time.
George, how about you? How did you learn to hit in Alabama back in the day? And then do you teach it differently today than what you learned?
Back in Alabama, we didn't have the monies to go out and buy a bat, so we just find a stick that looked like a bat. And we had the duct tape even then, get a rock and make a ball. So we had two bases, home plate and then second base. So you get to one base without getting tagged, you're fine. But it's just repetition, doing it over and over again. But the good thing, when Rick was talking about you mimic other players, but these guys were quality players, so you couldn't go wrong. You mimic Willie Mays. Well, for me, going in the Giant organization, you got a Mays, you got a McCovey, you got a Bobby Bonds, you got a Jim Ray Hart. All these guys are power hitters, and I wanted to be like them, so to speak. And so whatever I saw, if I wanted to be like the Jim Ray Hart, it couldn't go wrong, or Willie Mays, it couldn't go wrong. So I would talk to those guys about hitting and then observe what they're doing. And I know it doesn't come into play today, but my scout, he would, every day after school, he would take me to the park and work on the game of baseball, bunting, soft toss. But one day I got my hands started to bleed a lot, get a little sore, and underneath the backstop there was an opening, and behind the backstop there was a creek. So I tried to keep hitting the ball underneath so we could lose the baseballs because my hands were getting so tender. But he every day I make sure that I was on time, ready to go. But he worked with me on those mechanics, my hands, seeing the ball, hand and eye coordination, and so that plays a lot. But as Rick said earlier, it's repetition, doing over and over and over again, and then now asking them why are we doing this, and why, like I say, back to the cause and effect. But today's game, I look at switch hitting. I see Dela Cruz. I said, why? I'm saying to myself, why is he a switch hitter and he's not using the opposite field? And I wanted to introduce, when he's batting left-hand, introduce him to left field.
Yes.
When he's batting right-hand, introduce him to right field.
Yes.
So that's the advantage of being a switch hitter. But a lot of these guys, they don't. They're trying to hit the ball out of Yellowstone Park. But I break the hitting down into 3 categories. The physical part. Okay, what things you need to work on to get strong, like say your hands, your fingers, your forearms, your legs,
Yes.
and then the mechanics of it. Okay, there's a sequence you need to work on. And once you go out of that sequence, that's when you're not going to be consistent. But the one that I call myself more of a hitting psychologist, the one that really stands out is the mental part.
Yes,
It's not I said, what are you thinking about when you're in the batter's box? And they would either say nothing or say, I said, well, you've gone wrong already. You don't, when you get in the batter's box, you don't think. You know, just react.
Yes.
React to
There you go.
on deck, yeah. Going from there, but you got to build their confidence and find out what they can do well, and then keep expanding.
Yes.
And once again, Rick said, being patient and get them to laugh at themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Having
you.
fun.
Yeah, having fun's big.
Because
Yes.
when they do something, I would laugh at it. They look at me like, why are you laughing? I said,
Yes.
it was funny.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know.
That's cool.
Or then when he hit the ball well, I come up with sound effects. Bam! Wow!
Yes.
That's great. They look at, what's going on? I said, that was exciting. Didn't you see that?
Yeah.
That reminds me of me.
Ethan, why don't you speak a little bit? You had an interesting situation because we've got all levels of play here at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've got George who played in the bigs. We got Rick who played all the way up through semi-pro and older into his adulthood. You've got Ethan, you played up through high school, and I just played Little League till I was like a freshman in school, and then I was a far better trumpet player than I was a catcher, so I had a better shot at college that way. But so when Ethan came up and started learning to hit, I'm teaching him what I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I come from see the ball, hit the ball, get the elbow up in your ear, and all this kind of other stuff that was sort of common approach, but yet not a very educated approach.
It wasn't overly technical.
Yeah.
It was so I remember elbow up, and the goal was to get the fat part of the bat on the ball, and which isn't wrong per se, but it wasn't technical and mechanical. And so coming to Rick was kind of revolutionary for me because it loosened me up. I was stiff as a board, and I was swinging with my arms. And he taught me how to loosen up and get some rhythm to my swing. And he dropped my elbow, first of all, and kind of taught the rotational aspect of it.
Wow.
And how to use the whole body, how to use my legs. I was a bigger kid, but I wasn't using my legs. I was swinging all upper body,
And you had power,
And
too.
I had, and once I figured it out, it made a big difference.
Yes.
But swinging, it's more than meets the eye. It looks like you're swinging with your arms, but it's a whole body movement. And
Yes, it is.
if you haven't learned it from somebody else like you did, I mean, you probably didn't have a lot of formal hitting instruction.
Oh, I had zero formal hitting
exactly.
instruction.
So that's where seeking out Rick's guidance was critical in my baseball journey for sure.
Well, go ahead.
That's great.
And for me, to build on, I always say, to build on hitting philosophy, for me, I'm a guy that I talk to a lot of people. What works, what doesn't work for you. What works and what doesn't work for this kid might not work for you.
100%.
Yeah.
And to see that, and I think today people be trying to morph people into something that they're not at that time.
Try to
Maybe-
fit the
yeah.
player to
So,
a mold rather than
yes.
mold the player.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So some kids got they got a leg kick and everything, and they say, "Well, my coach taught me that." I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, they've been having leg kicks for years, man. You know not say that. Like, really? What? Man, go back and see Ruben Sierra,
Yes.
or someone like that, man, or
It's timing. Having that timing.
yes, having time.
Daryl Strawberry for
yes.
the Mets. He kicked that. But the thing is being able to put it back down in the same place, and it's choreography. I said,
Yes.
Choreography, I like that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. But speaking of that, though, when you said Rick taught you rhythm, it's like, did you listen to James Brown or Al
He
Green?
brought that up.
Yeah.
He brought that up specifically.
Mazio,
Yeah.
come on.
I ask people sometimes, like, man, what
I
kind
know.
of music you listen to, man?
I said, it start with your feet. We got to get your feet loose. You don't got to move around.
Yes.
Dance here.
Again, like I said, just learning and just asking people. Even today, I'll ask, might call up a high school coach or whatever, just ask them, like, hey, what's going on your level, man? What you guys are doing or whatever, and stuff like that. I might share something or they'll share something with me or whatever. But even just speaking us here, talking to George and getting his feedback on the things that he knows, and it's enlightened me huge, man.
Well, one of the things I can say as a parent is, Ethan played for a lot of different coaches on a lot of different teams. And lots of parents I know go through the same thing where, you go from one team and then it falls apart and you go to another team and it falls apart. It's just too common in travel baseball. So our coaches for the teams were constantly changing. But when I took Ethan to Rick and I saw him work with him for 10 minutes and I said, this is a guy that I want to instruct my son through whatever else we play. I want him to instruct my son for the rest of his career. And throughout all that we went through, this team, this fell apart. That's why we could always go back and Rick was always there to kind of help him, and he knew him. He understood him. Cause you get in a new team. Okay, that coach doesn't know him. No. He doesn't. It takes him a long time through the season to even get to know his personality and what he's like, and whether he overthinks things or whether he reacts, whether he's aggressive, whether he's not. Rick knew all that already. So there was a huge value as a parent in having someone as a private teacher that could be in his life for years. Right. And Rick, I will forever be grateful for the time that you spent working with Ethan, because it gave me peace of mind as a father, knowing that, first of all, you had expertise I didn't have, and you were able to help him in ways I could not help him. And at the same time, you were there no matter what else we faced. You were there to kind of help him get through it. And that was huge for us.
Well, and how many times did I come back to you and say, well, this coach taught me this, and you go, okay, that's one way to do it.
Right.
Let's do it this way instead.
Right. But that's, I have to compliment you, Greg, as a parent, and telling parents, go out and scout the coach.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How does that coach react or interact with that kid?
That's a great
I don't
point.
want my kid to be yelled at. How does he talk? Is he do it my way or you take the highway? But there are parents out there that can relate to a Bobby Knight or John Wooden. Which coach would you want? Right. And saying with my daughter, when I was getting her to become a better tennis player, I observed, how is that coach? How is the forehand? How is it the backhand? How's the volley? How's the serve? So I picked certain ingredients out what that person can teach so that it can relate to my daughter, because I want her to. It's a development,
yes,
and as not only as a baseball player but as a person.
Yeah.
So that's a person, because you're not going well. It sounds like it's being negative, but not everyone's going to make it as a baseball player or as an athlete. But the confidence that they build, you never know what that kid can do.
Yes.
So being able to, okay, Ethan, you're okay. Because the kid strikes out. I said, okay, learn from it. Or the good example, I said, how did you do today? I had a bad day. I said, the only reason you would have a bad day if you don't make adjustments.
Right.
Right.
And what do you need to do to make adjustment? If you just forget about whatever happened there, you didn't learn from it. It is a bad day.
Right.
But what did you learn from that? Mm-hmm. And with the kid that's on the team, I say, finding something that's going to help them to be successful. And I was talking to someone the other day about hitting. I said, well, I only had, say, a certain number of grand slams when I played with the Mets, but they really stood out. And the one that stood out, I said, I had struck out 3 times in a row. I got against the guy, the Dodgers, Bob Welsh, And Tom Lasorda did me a favor. He took him out my fourth time at bat. The bases were loaded. So he wanted to bring in Niedenfear, who Niedenfear, he was a top relief pitcher in the game. But every time they would come to New York, he would say, I know how to get you out, telling me. I said, one of these days is going to be a dramatic hit. He said, yeah, that's fine. So he comes in. Usually they have the golf cart to bring the pitcher in, a relief pitcher in. He ran in because it's George Foster. He knows how to get me out. And so instead of getting 8 warm-ups, he only wanted 6 warm-ups. So that's fine. Then he threw me a pitch low and in, and I took a check swing. Instead of him waiting for the catcher to throw it back to him on the mound, he ran halfway to get the ball. So now he threw me a pitch low and away, and to this day, I think that ball's still going. So I hit a grand slam. I said, wow, that is great. I hit a grand slam, and I couldn't wait for the next day so that I can get the newspapers and say, George Foster hit a grand slam, helped the Mets win. But it was like, George Foster causes a fight. Like, wow, that's a downer. Because the next guy, Ray Knight, he hit him in the ribs and the fight took place. I said, I can't win for losing here.
That wasn't the only time that Ray Knight ended up in a fight with you.
No.
We'll talk about that game eventually.
Nobody knew Ray Knight was a Gold Glover. Golden Glove.
Yes.
He knew what he could do.
Oh, is that what? Okay.
It was back to as a hitter, you know what you can do. Don't go out there. You're a line drive hitter. Don't try to lift the ball. But Ray Knight, he had that confidence, a confidence exuded. Now, once you know that he's a Golden Glover, it's like, okay, he's on my team. Come on.
Sometimes we have a conflict of goal in that parents tend, I know I can speak for myself and for a few other parents that I've known over the years. What we want is to see our children develop as a player. And when what the coach wants is simply to win games,
right?
Yes.
That brings that conflict that makes it tough. And that's why having that personal instruction helped us to navigate that, because I knew that even if all the coach cares about is winning, we can go to a lesson on Tuesday and he's still developing.
So at the major league level, George, obviously each team has their own hitting coach. So did you struggle switching teams and having to learn a new philosophy with that hitting coach, or did you have a guy, kind of a non-partial party, you could step away from the team aspect and go back to him, or were you stuck with the guy on the team?
All that jazz. When I, of course, with the Reds had Ted Krzyzewski, so you knowing that voice, and he know. Back to Rick knew you, he knew me. So now I go to the Mets, and now you feel that if you bring your own guy, say, are you creating a conflict?
Right.
And so now you have a different philosophy, and now you hear the guy, but it becomes noise after a while, because what he's saying you don't really want to hear, and you want to respect the fact, okay, but then now I don't give them credit. They're not a hitting coach. They're batting, because they're not really sure. They have theories. And so after a while, I wanted to try to find myself again. And it's a challenge. So when you go from one team to the other, it's a big adjustment. And like Aaron Judge, he has his own guy.
He has his own guy.
If you're doing well,
Nobody
why not?
doesn't mess with you.
Why not have your own guy?
Yeah.
I know back with Keith Hernandez, he had his dad. So it's okay to be able to have your own, because you're successful in doing it.
Bryce Harper, too.
They respect the fact that Aaron Judge need to go to this certain guy all the time. That's fine to help him become better, and there shouldn't be any conflict.
I know Aaron Judge's his hitting teacher. I think he goes by Teacher Man Hitting or something like that.
Yeah,
that guy.
Man, if you look at his comments, every dad is an expert, and they are. He has a very unique style, but you can't deny that it's effective, because Judge is doing what he's doing. And back to what you were saying, Rick, about it fits that specific player.
Yes.
I don't know that would work for every player,
Right.
but it works for Aaron Judge.
Right. This Aaron Judge, I mean, he owns the world as far as being a power hitter, but the fact is how many others are being helped. Because I remember George Brett, Charlie Lau. Charlie Lau's known to help George.
Yeah,
he would
Charlie
say,
Lau.
George Brett would hit anyway. And then a lot of other guys tried that. It didn't work.
Yeah.
So back to if it fits, if you go into, I mean, it sounds simple. You go and buy a new pair of shoes. You don't go look at the shelf. I want that pair, but you're going to try it on. Right. Make sure it fits. Yeah. And I got to make sure that what I'm saying to this kid fits. Yes. And going from there. But everybody figured that, okay, this is how it's going to be right here. This is how this fits Ethan, so it should fit everybody else. No, right. That's not it.
Well, and the reason I came to you, Rick, was because one of my buddies, Caden Morris, came to you, and that's how we got introduced. Yeah. At that time, Caden and I were very, very different shapes. Very different shapes.
Yes, you guys were.
It's funny because by the time we were in high school, we were roughly the same height, and we weren't that far off in weight. No. And so, you know, we wear the same size clothes by the time we get to high school, right? But when in middle school, we were very, very different shapes.
He was a string bean and you were a jelly roll.
100%. So you know, you can't teach us the same way. We're not the same people, and I always felt you did a good job of that.
I appreciate it. As a coach, and this is why my philosophy of providing excellence in training is that we develop our players. Players didn't have to go elsewhere. We developed their hitting, developed their pitching, developed their fielding, catching, and I think we had just a collective of guys, and that's why my son played for the same guy from 11U to 18U.
It limits the noise.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, and so. We kept it simple, man. Our kids played in high school and went to college. Some got drafted. When you develop the mind, everything else can roll with that, man.
Well, and of all of the instruction that I took, your instruction involved the parents the most. I mean, even my mom would sit there and watch, and you call out to her, you see that, Leslie? You see, you know, and it's like, and she felt a part of it, and she could start recognizing some stuff in my game. And you know, when you're struggling and your mom says something, it's like, man, come on.
Yeah, but the first time we were sitting in a game, and Leslie says, "Separate and stride." I was cracking up because she didn't even know what it meant, but she knew that's what Rick said.
But Rick, you involve the parent, and so they play that role that they need to, and that supervising the training, because you know they're responsible for their players' development overall, and what kind of influence comes in, and you know as well as anybody that the main difference is what happens at home in the personal regimen. Yeah. You can go to practice 3 times a week, but if you're not doing your own thing every day, then what's the point? And so instructing the parents on being able to assist at home is a big deal.
That reminder. But for my case, we were talking earlier about it. You have a lot of people try to give you advice, and my saying is that too many voices, too many choices.
There you go. I like
so that. Finding an individual that you trust, a coach that you trust, and go from there.
Yes,
but
sir.
You have too many voices, you have too many choices, okay? I want you to have your elbow up. I want you to spread your feet. I want you to tilt your head. I want you to close one eye. So it's not going to work.
Level swing. Let it travel. Wait for your pitch. Be aggressive out there. It's no wonder young players get confused at the plate. What if your son or daughter could learn not only how to hit the ball, but also where to hit it, when to hit it there, and why? George Foster has played baseball at the very highest levels. He was the National League MVP when he hit 52 home runs and 149 RBIs in a single season. He led the major leagues in home runs twice and RBIs 3 times. He was a 5-time All-Star, a Silver Slugger, and he helped the Reds win back-to-back World Series. During his 15-year career, George developed a unique approach to hitting that made him one of the greatest hitters of all time, and now your favorite player can learn it too. That's right, baseball legend George Foster is currently accepting new students. Learn the psychology of hitting, situational hitting, hitting for power, bunting, and more. Every team needs players who can hit, and George explains the game in a way that's easy to understand and exciting to learn. So check out GeorgeFosterBaseball.com to learn how you can apply for private lessons with a member of the Cincinnati Reds Hall-of-Fame. Spots are limited, and the roster will fill up fast, so don't wait. Apply at GeorgeFosterBaseball.com. Check out George Foster Baseball today. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of wrap everything up here today.
Okay.
And kind of look at we talked about power hitting. We talked about coaching. We talked about hitting for average. We talked about developing players. That's what this podcast is all about. That's why we call it the complete game, because we're going to talk about everything there is to talk about in one episode or another. So if you've enjoyed this, if you've enjoyed the conversation, let us know. Leave a 5-star rating, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. If there's something you want to know, you want us to ask the coaches here or kick around at the table, let us know. Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And we're going to plan to do this once a week. So check back with us next time, and we'll see you soon on the Complete Game Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the Complete Game Podcast, the show that's all about baseball. New episodes drop each week, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. If you'd like to support the podcast, consider leaving us a 5-star rating, or better yet, drop us a comment or a question and let us know what you think. The Complete Game Podcast is produced and distributed by 2 Creative Digital Marketing. Check us out at 2creativedigital.com. On behalf of Ethan, Coach Rick, and the Silver Slugger George Foster, I'm Greg Dungan saying have a great week, and we'll see you real soon.